for coming today. We've got just an incredible subject to talk about, and I am thrilled to be here today with the movers and shakers of Boston, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Mayor Michelle Wu, to announce the reintroduction of the Freedom to Move Act, legislation for transit justice, which would deliver critical funds for fare free transit projects across the country. We're also going to hear from other leaders, but I just want to signal out that we are joined by Councillor Rusi Louis-Jean, who has joined us. Thank you. And I think Councillor Julia Mejia is also going to be joining us this afternoon. And we also are joined by representatives from 350 Mass. Cabell Ames is here. This is a huge advance in climate justice as well. From the Sierra Club Massachusetts chapter, Dan McCarthy, who is here. Green Roots Sarah Amen is here as well. Thank you, Sarah. And Community Labor United, Susanna Bohm is with us as well, and we thank you, Susanna, for being here as well. So we thank each and every one of them for all of their great leadership. And Congresswoman Pressley and I are here to announce the reintroduction of the Freedom to Move Act, legislation for transit justice, which would deliver critical funds for fare-free transit projects across the entire country. Congresswoman Pressley is my partner in this fight in the halls of Congress. Her commitment to equitable, accessible public transportation is unmatched in the United States House of Representatives. And Mayor Michelle Wu is our partner in this fight on the streets of Boston. Her steadfast leadership on fare-free transit and her tireless efforts have put Boston at the forefront of the fare-free transit movement across our entire country. I also want to thank Stacey Thompson, Executive Director of Livable Streets Alliance, whose passion for equitable, green, and reliable public transportation is an amazing asset for the Commonwealth. And our gratitude to Connie Forbes, who you'll be hearing from in just a few minutes, who is a rider of the fare-free buses here in Boston, for joining us to share what the fare-free revolution has meant to her. We know that transportation is about freedom. That's why the legislation that Congresswoman Pressley and I are introducing in Congress is called the Freedom to Move Act. Our bill would provide $25 billion over 5 years to support state and local transit agencies to create fare-free public transportation systems. The Freedom to Move Act would also make critical investments to improve the safety and quality of public transportation, particularly in low-income and historically underserved communities. We know now, more than ever, how essential this legislation is. In the spring of 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 crisis, ridership plummeted by over 80%, forcing transit agencies to make difficult decisions around jobs and service cuts. Congress helped to cushion this blow by providing billions of dollars to state and local governments, but today ridership is still down 30% across our nation. At the same time, transit agencies are struggling to recruit workers and restore services. The people of Boston know that better than anyone. And low-income Black, Brown, and immigrant Bostonians know it the best. We should see this moment as an opportunity to rebuild, reimagine, and reinvigorate our public transit systems, to fix the historic injustices that are built into the physical and operational structures of public transportation in America, and finally to deliver truly accessible, affordable, and safe public transportation for everyone. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, Congress provided $90 billion, the largest federal investment in public transit in history, to help seize this opportunity. But it is only a start. To truly create world-class public transportation across the United States and to advance justice and equity, we need to make public transit free. And that is why I am proud to stand with Congresswoman Pressley today to reintroduce our Freedom to Move Act. People are already experiencing the benefits of fare free transit right here in Massachusetts. Thanks to Mayor Wu and Mayor Janey before her, Boston has eliminated fares on 3 bus routes, routes 23, 28, and 29, all of which stop right here at Ruggles Station. This effort was made possible through $8 million of federal money through the American Rescue Plan. The results of Mayor Wu's fare-free experiment may even be more impressive than the Boston Bruins' historic record this season. In Boston, ridership on fare-free routes has increased by 35%, more than double the increase on other MBTA bus lines, and have saved many riders hundreds of dollars a year. Other fare-free transit programs in Massachusetts have seen similar success. Merrimack Valley's transit fare-free program increased ridership by over 120%. And in Worcester, the Worcester Regional Transit Authority has seen ridership surge nearly 150% above pre-pandemic levels, in part due to its fare-free program. And thanks to this success, last week, Worcester extended its fare-free program for yet another year. This is an exciting landmark moment. For far too long, our country has prioritized the expansion of roads and highways, but we have to put that approach in the rearview mirror. We need fare-free because public transit creates stronger economies, better health outcomes, and greater access to education. We need fare-free because low-income families spend nearly 30% of their household income on transportation expenses. We need fare-free because fare enforcement disproportionately impacts communities of color and increases altercations, endangering transit riders and workers alike. We need fare-free because public transportation emits 50% fewer greenhouse gases per passenger mile than a private vehicle. Our vision of a Green New Deal future, one in which we center justice, racial justice, economic justice, social justice, and environmental justice, is also a fare-free transit future to ensure that we have transit justice as well. It's an honor to be in a city where we have the Green New Deal mayor of our country, of the entire country, the leader. But down in Washington, every day, on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, when Ayanna Pressley takes the microphone, the Republicans back away from their microphones because they know they're in a fight for justice. I give you the great Ayanna Pressley.
Well, Senator, I'm certainly always gravitating towards you because you are an incredible partner and a pace setter on so many issues of consequence, issues that you've been a canary in the coal mine for a long time, like climate justice. I want to thank Senator Markey and also my colleague, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, for laying the blueprint for a new North Star when it comes to climate justice in the Green New Deal. And I also want to thank my sister in service, Mayor Michelle Wu, for leading the charge locally, for making Boston the national model when it comes to the Boston Green New Deal and on transit equity. And of course, our most important partners, our advocates and public transit users, thank you for sharing your stories, for making plain what's at stake in this fight, and pushing us to build a public transit system that we aspire to use, one that we deserve, and not just one where we pray we can get to where we need to get to. Riders should never have to choose between safety and service. Our public transit systems are meant to provide communities with the mobility and the freedom to access the critical services, but as the last few years have shown us, for far too many in the Massachusetts 7th and across the country lack reliable, safe, and affordable transit service. I'm always referencing the Livable Streets report that enumerated just how bad these inequities are, in particular for Black Boston bus riders. Riding, waiting, transferring an additional 64 hours a year. That's an additional 64 hours to get to your place of work, to get to school, to get to a health care appointment, to get to child care. So when Senator Markey and I say this is literally about the freedom to move, that is so basic and so essential and something that should be an inherent right for everyone. And the inequities that we see in the Massachusetts 7th, as you've heard me speak to many times, maybe you're tired of hearing the statistics, but people are more tired of living them, that in a 3-mile radius from Cambridge to Roxbury, life expectancy drops by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. Transportation has everything to do with that, with those inequities. Traditionally, the federal government has made investments that have only served to create and exacerbate these inequities. There's been a funding of highways, roads, and bridges, but then an underinvestment in our public transit systems. Public transit is a public good, and we should invest in it as such. So as we continue to advance bold infrastructure investments, transit justice must be part of the conversation. We find ourselves truly at a critical inflection point. The MBTA is in a moment and a much needed point of transition. Commuter confidence in the T is at an all-time low. There is no better time to make the bold, robust investments necessary to restore riders' confidence in the T and to promote public transit nationwide as the public good that it is. Our Freedom to Move Act will help us do just that. It will build on the success, thank you, Mayor Janey, thank you, Mayor Wu, of the Fare Free pilot programs in Boston and all across our Commonwealth, providing safe, high-quality, fare-free rides for all across the nation. We have seen how impactful and transformative the fare-free transit pilots have been here in Boston, making the number 23, the 28, and 29 buses fare-free has allowed students to get to and from school. It has connected people to jobs, to goods, and essential services like education and healthcare. It has helped address the transit gaps that have deepened the racial and economic disparities in our Commonwealth. The data and the benefits are clear. When we lower barriers for residents to ride public transit, then they will use it. These are the types of investments that we should be making, those that make our communities more connected and that directly support our people. As someone who has relied on public transit throughout my life to get to the grocery store, to get to school, to get to medical appointments, I know how life-changing fare-free transit can be. Transit justice is a racial and economic justice issue. We know that the people who depend on public transit the most are mostly Black, brown, or low income. The average transit commuter spends nearly 16% of their annual budget on transit, and that number is closer to 30% for low-wage workers. By eliminating fares and incentivizing people with cars to take public transit, households could save more than $10,000 a year. Fare-free transit, this is the type of bold, transformational policies we're supposed to advance. Policies that go as deep as the hurt and are as bold as our aspirations, that meet people at their needs and their dreams. That is what transportation justice can do. It is also climate justice. Our bill will help us meet our climate goals by reducing traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions. These issues are intersectional, and our pursuit of justice must include them all. I'll let our incredible mayor and partners, and again I thank at-large councilors Louis-Jean and Mejia for their partnership as well. I'll let our incredible mayor speak to the impact of the Fare Free pilot program. It has truly been a game changer. And thank you once again to my Senate partner in good trouble, Senator Markey. And now I will bring up Mayor Wu.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am recovering from a bit of a cold, so I hope you all can hear me. We live in a world and at a time of such destabilizing forces, financial stresses that our families are still facing coming out of the pandemic, financial crises that can seemingly come out of nowhere, weather events or climate events that can upend lives and cause tremendous destruction and damage all around the world. And as we think about what our vision is for Boston, we strive to be that city that is providing a bit of respite and relief and comfort for our residents, that this is a community that's going to be a bedrock. Community stabilization is so important to everything that we're doing. That's why we're putting our dollars to funding affordable housing so residents can rest easy and know that they will have a roof over their heads and a home that they can afford. That's why we're fighting to create job pathways into the jobs of the future in life sciences and green tech and jobs for our young people and healthcare and all the ways in which this economy is evolving after the pandemic. We want Boston residents to know that they'll have direct access. We're fighting to make sure that our schools are sanctuaries, that our young people can reach every opportunity that they deserve and that they are treasured in these spaces. But for all those pieces to work, home, jobs, school, childcare, everything in between, you need to be able to get around to where you need to go in the city. It is an all hands on deck moment to support public transportation in Massachusetts and in Boston in particular. And that's why I'm so grateful that our federal delegation once again is stepping up to ensure we are rejecting false choices. We can't be a community and a society that says we're going to try to fix the T and make it reliable, but only for those who can afford it. That we're going to bring the service improvements and make it run smoother while residents get priced out of our neighborhoods and can no longer live in the communities they've built up. Accessibility, having everyone be able to reach and use these services, including financial accessibility, has to go hand in hand with reliability. There's no other way. And so sometimes people will say, well, why would you prioritize fare-free transit at a time when you need every single penny going to make the system more reliable and make those fixes? No one up here is saying that we have the luxury to delay fixing the system. But in fact, we are putting forward the data and the evidence that making the system more accessible to all actually improves its performance and reliability as well. We know that this works because we've been measuring every bit of it in Boston through these 3 bus routes that have been fare-free for over a year now. We know that compared to the entire system, these are the routes with the highest ridership, and that is no accident. These are the routes, as you heard Senator Markey say, that have climbed back closest to their pre-pandemic levels at nearly double the rates of other routes that are not as financially accessible. As you heard the Congresswoman say, these are routes that are the critical links to all the pieces of people's lives, and we hear the difference. And Ms. Forbes, our incredible community leader, is one shining example of someone who's been advocating for the many pieces of a community's lives to be able to fit together. This is a moment where everyone has to rethink how we fund public transportation. The old ways of putting it all on the backs of riders, the people who could least afford to figure out other alternatives and who are already doing the most to promote climate justice and reduce traffic and all the other benefits that public transit gives us, we cannot put it on the backs of our essential workers and families who are already riding transit. This has to be funded in a way that is equitable to all, just as how we fund public education. We don't put it on the backs of families to say, figure out a way to pay for everyone to benefit from us having the most educated community and workforce in the country. We know what those benefits are. We all share in that. And so whether it is our legacy as a city of being the first to declare we are going to go all in on creating public schools, we are going to go all in on creating public parks and recognize the shared benefit, on libraries that are free and open to all, the same way public transportation has to be recognized for the benefit that it brings to all of us. Traffic is horrible in Boston. I am not proud to share that we are routinely at the top of the rankings for how intense our traffic congestion is. And our incredible Chief of Streets, Chief Franklin Hodge and Vineet from the Transportation Department, and all of our teams are working on every angle that we can to fix that. But there is a key at the root of that is making sure that people have other alternatives that they can rely on. It doesn't take that much to improve traffic. Some research has shown that even just giving 5% of drivers another alternative, 5% of cars coming off the road because that person is able to take a bus instead or take the T instead, that dramatically improves traffic because you just need a little bit more room to maneuver around. And so we're not talking about needing to change the direction that the sun is going or totally upend the entire system. We are talking about making the small changes to empower people who already want to be living their lives in a different way to have that option and to have it reliably. I have probably been at every single T-stop in the city at one point or another, most often with a stroller with 2 kids in it, understanding how the elevators are very frustrating or how the other pieces of it fit together. This is critical to making sure that our entire system is one that is a vehicle, a platform to connect people to their dreams as opposed to a barrier. When I first came to the Boston area for school, having that T token was a little taste of freedom. I could put that token in the slot and go anywhere in the city and feel like I belonged and could take advantage of all that Boston had to offer. We have to get back to that sense of public transportation being something that connects people to feeling part of and feeling ownership of every part of our city and every opportunity that we're creating. Because we are doing more here than anywhere else to fund our schools, to create childcare that is accessible, to create jobs in the green economy, to make sure that we have every public event and community building opportunity. We just need our transportation system to be truly accessible to all. And so I also want to thank the governor and the new general manager for being extremely responsive and looking to work with the city and all of our partners in moving things as quickly as possible. We know they are a key partner in making sure that, again, we're not choosing one or the other, but reliability and accessibility are fundamental for all. So thank you so much to Senator Markey and Congresswoman Pressley for elevating this at the national level, for fighting for the resources that will enable us to expand the benefits that we've already seen right here in Boston with the pilot that has been working really well. And I want to thank and hand it over to Stacey Thompson from Livable Streets. Her organization and her leadership, their research has really laid the case, even before we stepped into this pilot, for why having fare-free bus would be a huge benefit, not only for the climate and for cleaner air and for affordability, but for the system to run better, for the buses to go faster. And we know that fare-free bus everywhere across the state, through the MBTA system and through all of the other regional transit authorities, will have a huge impact. We continue to partner with them on working on that at the state level. Buses are the fastest way to make improvements in our public transit system. It is cost efficient, and we are right now spending money to collect fares from people that can least afford that. And so we want to change that dynamic, and I want to thank Stacey for all that she's been doing to make sure that we are headed in the right direction. I'll pass it over to Stacey Thompson. Woo!
Thank you so much. I'm going to do what I always do at this point, is say we are all being entirely too polite. You all are just like gently clapping. Can we get a round of applause for our national leaders in free transit? My Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, my Senator, Ed Markey, and my Mayor, Michelle Wu. And can we get a shout out for the riders who are here today? Yes, come on, the riders. And Ken, when I say public transit is a
Public good.
louder, public transit is a
Public good.
that is what we believe in the state of Massachusetts, and that is why we are here today. Thank you so much for joining us. As I was preparing my remarks, I thought that I would take a look back to 2019 and 2020 headlines. As Mayor Wu mentioned, we started putting out some research that was like, hey, it's actually pretty cheap to make buses free. And at the time, the Globe wrote about the wild idea of free transit. Boston.com said the fringe idea of transit was picking up steam. More recently, a national publication said free transit is a distraction from the real work. And I laughed at these headlines because if you look at the data, the real data, instead of the hyperbolic headlines, the reality is free transit is working. In Massachusetts, we are not coming with alarmist hot takes. We are doing the work and we are bringing the receipts. As Senator Markey mentioned, we are seeing massive transit improvements in Boston, Merrimack Valley, and Worcester. What 140% ridership means is that more people are riding transit today in places where transit is free than they were in 2019, and that these systems are bucking the trends of downward transit ridership that was happening before the pandemic. We are reversing the negative narrative about transit. We are demonstrating in Massachusetts with real data and real pilots that free transit works. But we know that to make free transit a reality and move from proof of concept to permanent and stable implementation, this will require leadership and collaboration at local levels, at state level, and at the federal level. And that is why, as an advocate, I am so grateful for the brave and bold leadership that is happening from our experimenters in our local municipalities. And I want to shout out Representative Christine Barber and Senator Jalen, who have introduced legislation in the State House here in Massachusetts that would implement fare free transit across the state. And of course, again, I want to thank our federal electeds who are here today because they recognize that just like roads and bridges, like so many other pieces of infrastructure, we need support from the federal government to make transit great again in Massachusetts and great across the country. This is what the Freedom to Move Act is designed to do. So just like the sun on this gloomy day that keeps optimistically trying to poke out and be hopeful, I am actually hopeful about transit. I took the T here today and I am hopeful because I am standing here with bold transit riders, bold elected leaders who are willing to take risks, challenge the unsustainable status quo, and make transit affordable, reliable, and great in Massachusetts and in the United States. Thank you so much, and I'm now so excited to introduce Connie Forbes, who is the real hero, a transit rider.
Hi, my name is Connie Forbes. I'm a longtime resident of Boston, and I've taken the T most of my life all over the city of Boston. And I will say that, I will say that my experience with the T, with this MOVE program, has been very positive. I'm happy to say that residents in my community no longer have to worry about getting money for the T, and now they can put that money towards food and groceries, which are now skyrocketing out of control in a lot of ways. In terms of asthma, we have one of the highest asthma rates in the entire area, and that is of a concern. So if we can get people to ride the T and help towards getting the asthma rates lower, that'd be fantastic. I took the 28 bus here today, and it's nice to have our drivers be able to pay attention to driving, which is their job, versus having to be the fare box police people for the MBTA. That's important because I've seen fights break out on the T, and now with the new system in place, we don't have that. We don't see that. and I'm not sure what else to speak about, but everything I've seen so far for this program is fantastic. I apologize, I'm not a great speaker. I'm just talking to you about what I see and what I'm experiencing. But I do say that this program should be expanded to other parts of the city. We have the Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan lines are really high family lines. People who have multiple kids, some in strollers, some walking, and some may have some medical issues. And having that ability to get on the doors where they need to, so in other words, you don't have to go to the front door, you can go to the back door, you get on much more quickly, the traffic moves more smoothly. It's been great because we can literally, you're not waiting, you're actually moving, and that's been a big plus. And then the buses are running more steadily. We don't have a backlog of buses coming 4 and 5 at a time. They're able to move through traffic and show up in a better pattern. So that's been really positive. And I'm seeing so many good things with this, and again, I'm really hopeful that if you're able to help to expand the program to other parts of the city of Boston, so that our kids can experience perhaps the Museum of Science, which is it's hard to get to because even if you get a transfer, you got to get transfer there, transfer back, and it does add money. But this is a program that helps our young people experience other parts of the city they may never have seen before or have access before. So really appreciate your being here, and thank you for your attention to this matter.
And Councilor Louis-Jean, would you like to say a word?
Thank you, Senator Markey, for your leadership, Congresswoman Pressley, Mayor Wu, because it really is a partnership to get this all done. Connie, you are a great public speaker. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's really important to center riders in this discussion. When Mayor Wu was talking about traffic is not just something that car drivers experience. It's something that T-riders, that bus riders experience. And so when we talk about traffic, when we're talking about what we need to improve, when we just talk to drivers, that isn't the work. The work is really about talking to our bus riders, talking to people who use the system every day, and to get their experience, because we can make traffic better if we invest in our public transit system as it is a public good. As everyone has stated, the role of policy on a macro level is about looking at that which is burdening the most vulnerable, looking at that which is regressive. And T fares are regressive. Public transit fares are regressive. You make the fares free, then people are able to pay for food. They're able to do other things that fares have a bigger percentage of their monthly expenses. And so when we eliminate that, we're really doing the work of the people. And for me, the role as a new policymaker in the city of Boston, it's all about looking at what is regressive and doing what we can to make the lives easier for folks who have a hard time in our city. So I appreciate that. I appreciate being here at Ruggles Station. It's the station I got off at as a teenager going to middle school and high school. My dad also got off here at Ruggles Station as he working right here at Northeastern. Not that cool riding the T with your dad, but it's important. It shows that families depend on the T. It's not one person, it's families can depend on the T. And when we invest in it, we're really helping families. So I thank you, Senator Markey, for helping families, Congresswoman, Mayor, for people like me, my dad, for Connie, and for everyone who depends on the T. So really excited by the work that the city is doing. We are really a national example, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time, which means we can make fares free and we can improve our system. Thank you.
Beautiful. Excellent job. So I just want to say my father was a milkman at the Hood Milk Company, so he just had to go up to the Fellsway, get on the bus to go into Sullivan Station to work on the bus and then come home on the bus. I was a commuter to BC and BC Law School, and it's a long way from the Fellsway on the first bus to Sullivan, switching at Park to go out to BC and then back in the course of the day. But without the T, today, kids who are going to UMass Boston, kids who are going to school or going to work all across the city without the T, they don't know how to get there. So that's why it's so indispensable. So any questions?
Senator, this is legislation that has been introduced before. What will it take to secure this type of funding? And for anyone who can speak Spanish and can share a few words, you can say as well.
Okay, yes. Congresswoman Pressley and I have now introduced this legislation for 3 years, and we are going to continue to advocate for something that makes sense, and we can see it obviously in the condition of the T today and how many people it negatively impacts when it doesn't work. And so fare-free transit is just an extension of that for poor people who can't afford the car and can't afford the T either to get to school, to get to work, to go to their doctor's appointment. So we're going to continue to advocate. And in fact, we were successful in the American Rescue Plan of adding more money for transit. And so we know there's an appetite for it. And Congresswoman.
Well, every time we introduce it, we gain more supporters. And so it's important that we just keep the momentum up. It's our job as policymakers to advance policies that are responsive to the needs of the people. And again, public transit is a public good, and we need to make those investments to ensure that it is equitable, that it is accessible, that it is sustainable, and that it focuses on connectivity. Because we can do the work of making housing that is more affordable, jobs that pay people a living wage, but if they can't get to any of it, it doesn't matter. Moreover, I do just want to say that it is demoralizing when you cannot simply get to where you need to go. And I want to lift up in particular our constituents who are living with disabilities. I have ridden public transit with some of our constituents and our leaders in the disability justice space, and I just wanted to be sure to center them in this as well. They are amongst some of our most low-income constituents, and it is a grave injustice what they experience every day trying to navigate our public transit system.
Concerns about the serious safety issues on the MBTA. Can you talk about putting the money towards free fares versus, I know that the mayor said it's not one or the other, but in some ways some people may say we already have a shortage of people working for the T, then we have safety issues on top of that. Are free fares really where we need to spend our money?
I would say safety has to be the priority. But if it's not accessible to everyone, what was the point? You know, we know that that for too many families without the T, their lives are not sustainable. Actually, we saw that over the weekend where the young man from Malden with a disability could not reach his destination because of the failure of the ride in order to get him there. And just following upon what Congresswoman Pressley said, historically, we haven't been able to see these people, black, brown, immigrant, disabled people in our society. And we've helped to lift the gaze of people to the constellation of possibilities for their lives, and free transit is a big part of it. Access to education, to healthcare, it's all a big part of it. And yes, we have to deal with the safety issues, without question. But we have to make them safe, not just for people who are middle class, but safe for black, brown, and immigrant and disabled communities as well. And it all has to go together. And we don't have a choice. That has to be the mission for the 21st century, to ensure that transit justice is at the heart of the agenda. And Congresswoman?
Yeah, I just think it's a burden for riders to feel that they have to choose between safety and service. Riders should not have to choose between safety and service. And as someone who served on the municipal level for 8 years, so one of the things I found most frustrating is that these unjust binary choices are often foisted onto us. We don't have to make these choices because people deserve both safety and service.
I would just add on this front in particular, it costs a tremendous amount of money to collect money from riders. And the T right now, several years back, had put forward nearly $1 billion for a whole new fare collection system that would involve installing stations at various convenience stores and other locations, so that there would be a card loading station within a quarter-mile walk of various bus stops, and complicated algorithms to figure out where they should go and this and that. And that is now years delayed. There is nearly $1 billion on the table right now to find a way to collect fares better, because the T itself acknowledges that it slows the buses down. It increases our operational costs for everyone to line up at each bus stop, dig through their bags, find their card, or uncrinkle the dollars and feed it through. We see tremendous benefits and savings from getting rid of fare collection, especially for buses, and it makes the operations run better. We know that this is sometimes a red herring about we need every dollar to go towards fixing the system. In fact, we are, I would say, if you dig into all the numbers, losing money on collecting fares on buses in particular. It's a tremendous effort to collect it, to have the system to, as Ms. Forbes said, put bus drivers in the role of policing that in certain ways and causing conflict on buses. The T has plans, $1 billion cost of plans, to move towards what would be a proof of payment system, which would not involve everyone tapping or paying as they get on, but paying separately, and then having inspections on the bus, random inspections to see if someone has proof that they paid, which causes its own set of challenges around racial bias and how that is administered. When we could save all of that money, recognize the cost savings that come from moving to a system that recognizes the need for access, and put this energy elsewhere into actually deploying those funds into improving the infrastructure itself.
Given the dynamics in Washington right now, free transit really is going to be more of a state's issue for, potentially the next couple of years to come. So what is the goal here at the state level? Is it, while you guys are working to build more support in D.C., is the goal to push the governor and the T to accelerate their timeline towards fare-free buses? What are your goals?
I think it's just built, we need partnership at every level. We did just pass the Fair Share Amendment on the ballot, and so that's going to give us, shout out to everybody who worked hard to pass that, and to the electorate who saw how critical it was that people pay their fair share so that we can make those critical investments in public education and public transit. We also still have some unused ARPA funds. I think the time is always right to do what is right. And this is just simply right, and it's our job to be responsive to the needs of the people, and people need access to rapid, reliable, safe, affordable transportation, public transportation, and it should be free. Free the T. Free the buses. Economic freedom. It's the freedom to move. It is just so basic. Everyone should inherently have the freedom to move. We can't make these other investments if people can't navigate and negotiate a city.
Yeah, can I say this? We're living in the Green New Deal city. What was considered unrealistic 4 years ago is now the governing principle of the city of Boston. And other cities are now emulating Boston, not just here, but around the world. So we're not just the Bay State, we're the brain state as well. So we figure it out first. We can see where the problems are. We identify them. And now, excuse me?
What can writers do to support this bill?
Okay, so let me just finish. We now have a mayor who has made this a priority at the top of her list. We now have a governor who has made the T an issue at the top of her list. And you can see the headlines in the paper over this past weekend in terms of where some of these people have been working and what their responsibilities are to make sure that the T works. So yeah, they're going to work on making sure it's safe, but then we also have to make sure that it is accessible. So come on up.
My favorite question. I'm hearing some skepticism, so I also just want to shout out that one of the most successful fare-free efforts in the country is in Kansas City. So I know you all think that this is a blue issue, but fare-free transit is being advanced in LA, it is being advanced in red states, it is being advanced in Washington, D.C., and we also secured more money for transit than in history in the most recent infrastructure package. So I do not think that this is dead on arrival. I just want to we got to keep the momentum up, and let's not pretend that this is only us. To answer your question about how to get involved. So one, Public Transit Public Good has a petition that is focused on low-income fares, which we are also fighting for in the short term. If you have questions, I'm going to have Susanna raise her hand over here. You can sign up. As I mentioned, there is also an effort in the State House, and there is actually money in the previous bond bill to advance more fare-free pilots across the state. So if you care about that, write to your state representatives and the governor directly asking them to use the money that they have the authority to do to give municipalities more resources to advance this work. And then if you want to get involved in the long term, you can also reach out to my organization, Livable Streets, and my colleague Catherine, who is hiding back there, can help you with email addresses, etc. So there are lots of ways at the local level, many organizations, and many efforts to get involved.
Any other questions?
Senator Markey, why hasn't the bill gained enough support to pass the Congress?
Excuse me?
Why hasn't the bill gained enough support in Congress?
Well, again, this is a new idea. And Boston is a pioneering city in advancing this idea. Congresswoman Pressley and I were successful in the American Rescue Plan in adding more money for mass transit that could be used for fare-free transit here in Boston and around the country. So we've built the foundation, and now we have to go to work to get a majority. Obviously, a Kevin McCarthy-led House of Representatives is not the optimal environment to be working in, but I can tell you that there is massive support amongst Democrats in the Senate, and we control the Senate. So we're going to continue to work in order to get a resolution of the issue, to make sure that there is more funding to get into the hands of great leaders like Mayor Wu. Congresswoman.
Yeah, I mean, again, we just have to amplify the examples where this is proven and where we have seen people's quality of life and even their station in life improve exponentially by having access to fare-free public transportation. It reminds me very much of when we first started banging the drum on student debt cancellation. It was an issue that people saw as fringe, as radical, as not likely to be one that would be viable, and we just kept up the pressure until ultimately the president did act by executive action, and now we're keeping up the pressure on the Supreme Court, because I do believe that the president does have a sound legal ground to use executive action to cancel student debt. But the point is, we built a coalition, we built a movement, and ultimately we saw action. And the same will be true here. Organized power is realized power. So we're just going to keep organizing. And that's not contingent upon if we have the gavel in our hand, or if we're in an election cycle. All the time.
Ms. Forbes.
Ms.
Forbes would like to say something.
I want to actually tell you that from my perspective, everything's connected. And you might be seeing that the 28, 20, 23, and the other routes are just servicing those people on those routes. But in reality, we're supporting the entire city of Boston by getting those people to and from their jobs. If you have a cup of coffee from Starbucks, or you have a cup or something at Stop and Shop, a lot of the folks who are using those bus lines are coming from those communities. And so you're enabling them to get to their jobs and be able to afford to keep those jobs. Because right now, a lot of my neighbors are being priced out of this community. And this is actually going towards helping them to be able to stay and be able to provide the underpinning for the city of Boston. So again, if this program can be expanded so that we continue to build on that population of people who are working towards supporting the city, that'd be wonderful. So it's not just about one group of people in one part of the city.
That's right.
Everyone's connected, and it impacts you. You may not realize it, but it's indirectly impacting everything that you're doing in the community. So thank you.
And be careful there. And I just want to follow up on Congresswoman Pressley. Debt forgiveness of college was considered pie in the sky just 3 years ago. The Green New Deal was considered pie in the sky just 4 years ago. And now Goldman Sachs says that the bill that we passed last year could be upwards of $1.2 trillion of funding for green energy technologies in our country. And no one would have been predicting that in 2021 someone would run for mayor of Boston on a Green New Deal platform. But she did, and she won. So Boston is usually right, but too soon for other parts of the country. So we're just starting. Okay? But ultimately, our views are almost invariably adopted by the rest of the country. So we take one final question.
To follow up on that, is the state putting $5 million potentially towards studying means tests and MBTA fares? Is that a good enough start if we're kind of talking about the long game here?
Okay. I will let Ayanna answer, but I think that what the governor is doing is complementary to what the mayor is doing and complementary to what we're trying to achieve. You know, it just shows that there is, in fact, now a political space for free transit, and that is being embraced at the state and the city level, and all of it is complementary. It's all coming together with a common view that we have to do something.
I associate myself with the words of my colleague.
I'll just say that it is a tremendous change to have a governor who is publicly committed to making this happen. Fare free bus statewide, as well as low-income discounted fare. And so we want to make sure that this isn't just a Boston issue, because we know that communities across the Commonwealth are connected and that it is not that much more financially to include everyone. About $30 million cost for bus fares within the MBTA system to be replaced, and about $60 million for the entire state's regional transit authorities and bus systems to be fare-free and accessible to residents. Again, we're already seeing specific communities like Lawrence and Worcester taking that up on their own. So I think the state has to do it right, but we are in a different place. The low-income discounted fare measure had been previously passed by the legislature, supported by the MBTA board, and then vetoed by a former governor, which was a huge setback. And so we're politically in a different world right now. Do we feel impatient about the pace that things are going? I am always impatient about how fast things are going, and we always want to make sure that Boston can have the maximum room to work on this. We continue to work on how we'll expand our existing pilot at the city level, including conversations with neighboring municipalities about routes that might cross our municipal borders. But we are cheering hard for the state to move as fast as they can, because we do need everyone, city, state, and federal, to do this together. Sure. Estoy muy agradecida a el senador y congresista, senador Markey, congresista Pressley, para su liderazgo, porque en ese momento de mucha destabilidad para nuestras comunidades, el acceso a transporte público es fundamental a todos los otros esfuerzos como aumentando la vivienda asequible o creando trabajo en la economía verde o invirtiendo en las escuelas públicas. Entonces necesitamos la colaboración de todos los niveles de gobierno, municipal, estatal, federal. Esto es un paso importante de otra vez esta propuesta sobre de los fondos federales para nuestro sistema de transporte público sin tarifas. En Boston sabemos que funciona. Tenemos un impacto grande de todas nuestras comunidades, especialmente con estas tres rutas sin tarifas, 23, 28, 29. Es un impacto que necesitamos aumentar, y con la colaboración y apoyo de líderes será posible para la ciudad de Boston y otros municipales en todo el Commonwealth de Massachusetts.
Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, off topic.
Do you want me to start while you get set up? So Democrats, the state Democratic Party is electing a new chair tonight. And I just kind of wanted to open this up to any of you who want to answer. Democrats control every major office in the state, supermajorities in the legislature. So where does the party go from here? What are the goals that you want to see the new chair set, starting tonight? Not to put you on the spot.
Look, I think that let me just start from my position as a member of Congress. We have 2 years to make the Democratic affirmative case. And the case is not just that we ain't them. The case is that we are centering the people and compassion and justice and advancing policy that is responsive to the needs of the people, while also continuing to do the work of advancing justice in the face of their obstruction of justice and undermining of our democracy and the people's rights. Whether it is reproductive justice and bodily autonomy, gender affirming care, Democrats, we are the party that is pro-woman, worker, immigrant, LGBTQ, while the Republicans continue to seek to advance what I would characterize as policy violence that is undemocratic and anti-everything. And now they have co-conspirators and accomplices from the lower courts all the way up to the Supreme Court, given their imbalance and far-right extremism, that are co-conspirators in their obstructing of justice, which is why Senator Markey and I today were together with Senator Warren about the need to reform and expand the courts. Okay, so Democrats need to organize, and all the time. We need to do the work of engagement and mobilization all the time, because organized power is realized power. And who votes determines who's elected, and who's elected determines the policies. And as we have seen, the policies determine who lives, who dies, who survives, who thrives. So in a Democratic in the minority in the House right now, we've got 2 years to make the affirmative case for Democrats. I believe that we will do it. We are already winning. You see the unionization happening throughout the country. You see the number of cities that are adopting Green New Deal policies. You see red states, blue states who are affirming that access to abortion care matters to them. We're already winning when it comes to the issues. And now we have to make sure that we win on the ground. And that's where our state party comes into play. So that would be what I would like to see, is that we play big, we don't shrink, and we don't allow the other side to define who we are. That we stand solidly in who we are and showing up for who continues to show up for this party.
I'll just say, we have to continue to do what we have been doing at the cutting edge: same-sex marriage, Green New Deal, strong gun safety laws, and then say, we're going to have even stronger gun safety laws. We're going to be the Green New Deal state. We're going to have a transgender Bill of Rights, and we'll lead on that nationally as well. That we'll just continue to be out in the leadership for our nation, and that the State Democratic Party of Massachusetts will be that engine of change. Good. Thank you all so much. Thanks for being here.